Ahlan wa sahlan. All right, today we're about to start something new. We're going to talk about something that is very important and hopefully should be fairly easy for you. And this is the passive voice in Arabic. All right. Now, your first question may be, what is the passive voice? Well, if you studied a lot of English classes, you may have had this drilled into you. If not, you may not know what it is. But let's look just in general. What is it? Okay, this is an example of the contrast between active and passive. Take a look at these two sentences. All right, hopefully you know the difference here. I mean, the same thing is happening in both cases, but this first sentence, we would call it active voice because what? We have a verb. The verb is broke. Who's the doer? That sneaky little Johnny again. And who is the done to? It's the window. So this is active voice. Now to say the other way, the window was broken, this is passive voice. Now you get the idea. The difference is, in the passive voice, the focus is on the recipient of the action. Okay, here we're focusing on the window. Now, that's as far as we want to take the comparison because from this point on, the English and Arabic are different. So, notice in English, first of all, this is fine. We can do both these things in Arabic. But in English, in the passive voice, you may or may not mention the doer. Okay, here we know the window was broken. We're not saying who did it. But what if you're a snitch? Okay, so now you are saying who did it. So in English, it is possible, it is perfectly possible to have this kind of passive voice sentence. The window was broken by Johnny, which means the same thing as this. We have just reversed the order. Okay, now, you probably also know from English class that this sort of phrase is highly frowned upon in English. This is considered very bad style, and if you work for the government, they jump all over passive voice. They hate to see it used like this. Okay, because here, you've just clearly shifted the order around. Now, there's a difference in this case. In this case, we don't know who did it, so all we can say is the window was broken. Here, you're just rearranging the sentence in the order for no reason. So as you know, this is very bad style in English, but it is still done. Now, the difference here, the reason we have this, is this type of sentence is not possible in Arabic. Okay, so, in Arabic, right, when you're using the passive voice, the doer is not mentioned. So, we can say this, the window was broken. But if we bring Johnny into the picture, we can't use this. Now, not to get too far ahead, but this is not just an example of bad style in Arabic. It's actually impossible to do in Arabic. And the reason is because in Arabic, the subject, verb, and object can be in any order. So you can say, for instance, al-katib kataba al-kitab. The writer wrote the book. Okay. You can also say kataba al-katib al-kitab, this is the most common way, is verb, subject, object. You've probably learned that. But you can also say kataba al-kitab al-katib. Verb, object, subject is used. It's less common. I mean, it's uncommon, but this can also be used. So the reason is, if we started rearranging the order, if we have all of them in there, there's no difference between this and this. And so that's why you cannot do this in Arabic. In Arabic, when you have the passive voice, the doer is not mentioned. Okay? The window can get broken, but we can't say who broke the window. If you say who broke the window, it automatically becomes a active voice sentence, and hopefully that will make a little bit more sense as we go on. The other thing we want to look at is, this is actually, this structure in English is very awkward. Was broken. It doesn't, if you read it literally, it doesn't mean what we normally take it to mean. So, in Arabic, the passive voice is done by vowel changes. meaning we shift the internal vowels and it makes it from active to passive. I know you want to see an example, right? Okay, here's an example. Favorite word, right? Kataba. Kataba, of course, you know, means to write. This literally means he wrote, but this is, of course, active voice. And so far, the only thing you have seen is active voice, so it's no big surprise. Now, what if we want to do the passive voice? Instead of to write, we want to be written. Well, in Arabic, we do this by changing the vowels. Now, notice, in the active voice, remember it was all fathas. Kataba, daraba, jalasa, darasa, and so forth. All right? Notice what we have here. Kutiba. Now, the last vowel doesn't change because this last vowel is a conjugation. And these are going to conjugate exactly like the active voice. The only difference is this internal change, and this is why it's important to remember this. Notice the rhythm. Kataba, kutiba. This vowel pattern makes it passive. Kataba, kutiba. This is the only difference. Now, that's either good or bad, depending on how you look at it. Let's take an example. Okay, focus on this guy. Daraba. Daraba is to hit. Daraba, he hit. In reality, daraba, hada rajul. He hit him. Now, what if we want to focus on this guy and say what happened to him? How am I going to say he was hit? Well, you know what we do. We just change the vowels. Duriba. So, daraba, duriba. Daraba, duriba. Okay, you are now fully qualified to be a boxing announcer. I think that's all you need to know, right? Daraba, duriba. You can go all day long. Okay, so this vowel change is the only thing that will change. The conjugations are exactly the same. So here I have conjugated it for all the persons. But notice they're exactly the same. Even the rhythm, the number of syllables is the same. The only thing that has changed is what they are. So, ana doribtu, anta doribta, anti doribti, huwa duriba, hiya duribat, antum duribtum, nahnu duribna. Now notice these are all saying I was hit, you were hit, he was hit, she was hit. It was a really bad day for all of us. Okay, so now if we're the ones out doing the hitting, the only difference is going to be, instead of duri, it's going to be darab. Ana darabtu, anta darabta, anti darabti, huwa daraba. See, that's the only difference. This, of course, is going to hold for every person in the conjugation. We use this one because it's one that works for everybody. I mean, some of these don't make sense, right? Ana kutibtu, well, it's grammatically correct, but it doesn't make any sense. I was written, well, what? Okay, so a lot of these. Ana doristu, you know, what does that mean? So again, only certain of these are going to be commonly used. Now, you know what I'm going to tell you, of course. What's the good news? You already know the good news before I even mention it. Go ahead. You tell us the good news. Right. This is going to work for how many verbs in the language? You know it. This is going to work for all measures. So even though we saw in the regular, the active voice, there were different vowel patterns. Once we get to the passive voice, it's all the same. So, fu'ila, but right, measure 2, same thing. Fu'ila. Now remember, this is a kesra. The computer just puts it up top when there's a shedda, but this is the same vowel down here. But again, fu'ila, uffila. Same number of syllables that you have in the active voice. Conjugations are the same. The only thing that is different is these two letters become u and e versus whatever they were in the active voice. So this is going to work for, I mean, you just have to learn one pattern and use it on every verb in the entire language. Okay, isn't this fabulous? Now, I know what you're thinking. Wait a minute, what if we have more than 2 letters here? Okay, no problem. We just extend the oo's. So here we went oo, e, ah. Well, if we have a bunch more letters, just put oo, 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 oo. Okay, wasn't that funny? Right, so here, tu, fu, il, right? Tu, fu, illa, uf, tu, illa, ustufila. But notice, I mean, if you had a measure that went on for 20 letters, you would just have a whole bunch of oohs and then the regular pattern. Okay, now, I mean, it's fairly common. I mean, this is not the most common thing you're going to encounter, but it is something to be aware of. Now, I know what you're saying. Wait a minute. Some measures had a long vowel in them. Oh, yes, and you remember it was aleph, and we told you that aleph is always there. Always, always there. Okay. The only time this aleph will ever change is when we go into the passive voice. Now, remember, long vowels do crazy things. So what happens is this. It's the same pattern, but it affects this aleph as well. So fa'ala, that's active. Fu'ila, tufu'ila. Okay, these are the 2 words going to be obvious. The good thing is this, because it's a long vowel, you will see this written. So if you come across this, you know this is the passive voice. But again, it's the same pattern. If you just remember oo, e, that's really all you need to know from this, and everything else just logically follows. Okay, so that's the past tense of these. What about the present tense? What if something is being done to some? Well, I mean, this, just as in English, it's less common. It's far more common to use the passive voice to talk about something that has happened. But it does exist, and if you look at your chart of the measures, you will find this. Now again, the great thing is this vowel pattern, 2 vowel pattern, is going to work for every single measure, every single root, you name it. So it's pretty simple. So here we have an active voice, present tense. Yaktub. Yaktub, he writes. Okay. Now, here. Same conjugation, same number of syllables, same rhythm, same spelling. Everything is the same except the short vowels change. And in this case, they switch. But what it always becomes is oo-ah. Now, I wish it were the same as in the past tense, and that would be really simple. Unfortunately, it's not. So it becomes yuktab. Yuktab. If you come across this, this is passive voice. Okay. Now, again, these short vowels are not going to be written in, but just be aware of that. Okay. Now, the great thing. What if we have more letters? Okay. Well, last time we extended the oohs at the beginning. This time, for some reason, we extend the as. Now, someone once told me, well, just think of the name of the prophet. What's his name? Muhammad, right? Muhammad. Okay. It's the same vowel pattern. Okay, I don't know if that helps you or not, but it's this vowel pattern, and it's going to work for every single measure. Oo, the first one. Now that's a great thing because it's also the first one in the past tense. Okay. All right. So oo, but then as. Ufa'al, ufta'al, ustafal. Okay. Great. Now, we don't want to confuse you, so hopefully if you get the idea, that's good. Now, you may be saying to yourself, well, wait a minute. I learned that measures 2, 3, and 4 always began with the oo sound. I was supposed to listen for yudaris, right? Yusharik. Now this is confusing. Well, notice the difference. On measures 2, 3, and 4, right? Remember the pattern was oo-I. Yudaris. This would be yudaras. And that's the difference. But again, don't get hung up on these. Don't spend a lot of time memorizing these internal vowels because why? This is just not all that common that you should worry about it, and you have a lot of stuff to worry about. Okay, now you come across, but you say, okay, that's all great. That was wonderful, but you've been talking about short vowels, and we know these are not written. So this is what we're going to encounter in print. How can we tell what it is? So what's the answer? If the short vowels aren't going to be written anyway, and that's the only difference with the exception of, right, there's two exceptions. If that's the case, how can we tell? Well, you know the answer. What's the answer? Right, the context. So let's look at a very, unfortunately, this is a very, very common example. I wish it were not. You know, you look down here, this is a real news story, and unfortunately this one is like real easy to find examples of. This is a verb that appears in the news, unfortunately, several times a day. Okay, so we have these letters, qatala. Qatala, you know that root means, right, kill. You can see the picture, it's a car bombing. Now, question though, it has no vowels. So we don't know, do they mean qatala or kutila? Killed or were killed? To kill or to be killed? Now think about this, okay? What do we have? We have a bombing. قتل 148 شخصاً على الأقل. Okay, 148 people at least, what? Killed somebody or were killed? Okay, obviously, right? Kutila, it's they were killed. And unfortunately, I hate to say that, but when this word appears in the news, it's almost always this. And you're going to find that through context. Certain words are almost always used in the passive. Most words are almost always used in the active. There aren't that many that we use both ways. So unfortunately, words like qatala, to kill, jaraha, to be wounded, and so forth, faqada, to lose. I mean, these are usually lost. Even the one we showed you, daraba, to hit. Well, we don't normally say that. We normally say was hit. Something was hit. A location was hit. So, in reality, certain words are most often used, this word is almost exclusively in the news, used in the passive voice, and then, other words really aren't. I mean, darasa, study. I mean, it's not used that much. Okay? So, that's the thing, context. And so you don't have to worry. But what you do have to be aware of, and this is the most important takeaway, is that for most cases, passive and active voice will be written exactly alike, and context will be your only way of telling. Okay, how else? What if you say, boy, I just really can't guess. If you were naive and you couldn't guess, well, how would you know this is passive voice? Okay, we have 148 people at least, some verb, either killed or were killed, okay, and tens injured, okay, in an explosion. Well, how many, do we have subject and object or just the receiver? Okay, well, we have only one, right? So if we had, where there's killed, qatila, you should have a subject and an object. Somebody killed somebody. Here, there's only one thing mentioned. 148 people and tens more. 148 people killed who? It doesn't say who they killed. So again, you can tell, because in Arabic we don't, in the passive voice, we don't use both subject and object, unlike English. You can tell this, right? If we go all the way back, I mean, not to belabor this, again, look at the difference. In English, it would be hard to tell, because in both cases we have Johnny in a window. We can't tell if the window's breaking Johnny or Johnny's breaking the window. All right, if you didn't know. Okay, remember, in Arabic, we can't have this. So in the active voice, you will have, usually, subject, verb, and object. In the passive voice, you will have only, it's the subject of this passive verb, but it's really the recipient of the action. And so this is the case. Like here in the news story, we had 148 people and then a verb. Well, it had to be passive. So, I mean, not just your knowledge of the situation, but also the grammar can tell you. All right, that is probably way more than you wanted to know about detecting the passive voice. Now, the question you probably have here is, what if I don't want a subtitle? Well, you do that. Okay, the question is, what's the difference? You told us all about this passive participle, right? This maktub, maful, maksur, and so forth. So what's the difference between these two? Okay, meaning same, use different. I mean, they basically mean the same thing. So let's look at an example. Here's a root. Kasara is to break. Okay, Johnny in his window. Okay, now this is clearly a what? Let's look at it. Right. This is a passive verb. Kusira was broken. A shubak. The window was broken. Now we know Naughty Johnny did it, but Naughty Johnny is not mentioned. So here, kusira, we know this is passive voice. This is a verb. We're telling us the window was broken. Again, even without the vowels, you would know, because we have a window breaking. Well, we don't have a person. If there were a person mentioned, or a rock, or something like that, it would be active. Okay, so that's an example of passive verb. Now, here's a great, now do not copy down this sentence or anything, because it's a bad sentence. But this is what you would get. This is the dangers of using, say, Google Translate or something. This is what you would get if you translated literally this sentence. The window was broken. Well, this literally, notice, right? Literally says the window was broken, but it doesn't mean what this means. And this is why that English construction is really, it's misleading. Here we're talking about something happened. It just happened. Okay, a window received breaking. Here you're saying the window was broken, but then we fixed it and now it's no longer broken. That's what this would mean in Arabic. And that's what really, if you were to read this literally, that's what that should mean as well. But okay, we're not going to fix the English language today. Okay, so this is why you would not want to translate that. Do not translate. When you're trying to say this, don't say this. And this is what you would get if you literally translated word for word, and it would not be understood to mean the same thing. Kana shabak maksur, yani there was a broken window. That would be maksur. Okay, so now, so what's the difference here? Okay, well, the difference is passive participle is usually used as an adjective or as a noun for something that's an adjective. It's not a verb. It does not describe something having happened. This does not mean that something just happened. This means that something just happened. So you could say something like this. Ra'aytu ash-shabak al-maksur. I saw the broken window. When I went to the house, there was a broken window. عندما ذهبت إلى البيت كان هناك شباك مكسورا. So it means it in that case. It does not mean, the usage does not mean that something just happened. So anyway, this is not to get hung up with English. So this is the difference. Okay, here, okay, this means like broken window, a window that has been broken. It does not mean the same thing here. The window, like maybe got broken would be a clearer translation. Okay, although it's not great English. Okay, so that again is the passive voice. We've covered a lot of things. So what do you need to remember? Number one, that the difference, remember what the passive voice is. It's that. Okay, and remember that in Arabic, the passive voice is done by vowel changes. You should at least be familiar with those vowel changes, particularly the past tense one. All right, and so you know what they are, and be aware when you come across something that in normal writing without vowels, this could be either passive or active, and you have to use your context. And of course the last thing is that the same rules for passives apply for every verb in the language. Okay, so with that in mind, on behalf of my good friend Trout here, we want to wish you all the best in your active and passive struggles with life. Shukran jazilan, masalama.